Okay, thanks for the introduction. And it's been a great conference so far, right? How did you like it? Nice, nice. Okay. So my name is Stanimira Vlaeva. I'm from Bulgaria. And the most important fact that you should know about me is that I really love movies. And I'm also kind of a bragger, so we're going to play a game where I can show my skills in movie knowledge. So that's the first thing we're going to do. We're going to play a game. And also I have socks. So if you want socks, you have to give me some answers, you know. So the game is called Guess the Movie. You need to raise your hands. Yes? That's right. Yeah, Straža Galaktiki, okay? Okay. That's right. Next one, this one is easy. Yo, yes? Great, great one. They get harder. This one? Go. Great, great. It's Avatar. Cool. This one is harder, but it's one of my favorites. Go, someone knows it. Yes? You? Yeah? Yeah, that's right. Breakfast at Tiffany's. I can't throw that far, sorry. Nice. And that's the last one. It's my most favorite movie ever. Yes?
I don't know how in English. Сияние чистого разума.
Yes. It's Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. That's right. You can get your socks later because... Great movie. And that was the game. Now we can proceed with the more serious part. Cool. So our goal today will be to convert that game, which is an Angular application, to a mobile app using NativeScript. Yes, we already did that part. So, but what is NativeScript anyway? I happen to work at the NativeScript team, so that's what I'm going to be talking about. I don't really like definitions, so here's one. It's a framework or a set of tools that you can use to build native mobile apps for Android and iOS using web technologies, such as Angular, Vue, or just plain JavaScript. For the sake of the conference, we're going to be using Angular, of course, but it's good to know that you have options. So how does it work? When we use Angular in the browser, under the hood, we're using the browser renderer. The browser renderer creates and manages DOM elements, and the DOM elements and then display it in the browser, obviously, such as Chrome. It's the same for NativeScript, but instead of the browser renderer, we have a NativeScript renderer, and that outputs native mobile views and components. And we can use these to create native Android and iOS apps. Okay, now going to the real deal. How to add NativeScript to your existing web project. So we have two main ways to do that. The first one is by using Exploit. Exploit is a library that's created by a company called NStudio, which is created by NativeScript community members, which is so awesome. And it's actually built on top of NX. So the main idea is that you have a workspace, one directory, and in that directory you have multiple apps. And also you have a large part of your apps that is shared. So for example, you build some library, such as material, some visual library that you want to reuse in all your apps. You put that library in the shared folder, and then you can just reference it from the other projects. And also you can have separate folders for mobile apps. The other cool thing about Exploit is that it supports web, NativeScript, and also Ionic. And the second way that I've been working on, and I'm so excited to talk about it, is NativeScript schematics. It's built on top of Angular schematics, and if you don't know what is schematics, don't worry. There is a lecture later by Vitaly that's going to talk about schematics, and it's pretty cool. Also, if you're using the Angular CLI, under the hood it uses schematics. So for example, when you run NgGenerate component or NgGenerate module, or even ngNew to create a new app, you're using schematics. So it's not just a scaffolding tool. It doesn't just create new files. It also can modify the files in your project, right? So when you run NgGenerate component, you get some files for that component, but you also get your ng module updated so that that component that you just created is registered in it. And also NativeScript schematics is like an extension of these default schematics, so that you can generate stuff inside your mobile app, and you can also migrate your web app to NativeScript by using the Angular CLI. And I should say a big thank you to the Angular team who really helped us with building this thing. Alright, so now we got that. We're going to be adding some mobile app inside our web project, but what we can share, what we can reuse from our web app. We can reuse any service on ng module that's platform agnostic. For example, if you have a store that you want to fetch some stuff from, or update some things in the store, or manage the state of your app, that's platform agnostic. It doesn't have anything to do with a browser. It doesn't have anything to do with Android or iOS. It's something we usually call business logic. So we can reuse that. Also, you can reuse your routing configuration. But be careful with that, because you may want a really simple mobile app instead of a huge web app that you can navigate anywhere. And we can also reuse the component class declarations. So if you don't have any browser-specific logic in your component, you can reuse it. So that leads us to the next question. What can't we share? We can share some platform-specific stuff. For example, Angular Material. That's a very nice library, but it is built specifically for the web. It uses a bunch of DOM APIs, and we cannot reuse it in our mobile app. But fortunately, we have a lot of plugins and stuff like that for NativeScript that you can reuse. Also, another important thing is that in NativeScript, we write our markup in XML. And we have a layout system that's pretty similar to the Android layout system. But we don't have divs, we don't have HTML, we don't have paragraphs. But don't worry, it's really easy to get used to it, and I actually prefer it over HTML. So we're going to use that a little bit today, just to show that it's not that scary, and it's nice. Alright, so we warned what can be shared and what cannot, right? Okay, let's see that. So I have 4 more pairs of socks and a few questions. Can we share this thing? That's a movie service, and it has some logic inside it for getting movies. A lot of the logic is skipped, but you get the idea. Can we share it? Yes. Yes, we can share it. Nice. Next question. We have a component, a hint component, and it has a different change detection strategy. It has some template URL and input property and stuff like that. Can we share that?
It's not, because it's contains HTML and also input binding to HTML.
That is a very nice catch, but we can actually share it. But it's a tricky question. It's a tricky question, and you will see why. Because we actually, we have one component here, and I just said that you cannot reuse the HTML for mobile, right? It's a tricky question. But you'll get sucked because it was a nice try. Next one. Can we share this hint component template? No, we can't, of course. Thank you. So what we should do instead, we should write some NativeScript markup, which looks pretty much the same. We have an image tag, and it will work. So here's the thing you should notice. The web markup file ends in HTML, and the NativeScript markup file ends in TNS HTML. So our whole code sharing build system works based on that. If you want to have a mobile file that you want to use instead of that web file, like for example, you want to replace the web file, you have to create another file next to the web file and call it .tns.something, right? For every request that we have for app module, and when we are building for mobile, we're going to redirect these requests to app module.tns, right? Also, if you have any questions, you can interrupt me at any time, no worries. Cool. So we got that really simple concept. And now, let's see how do we get started, right? So the first thing you have to do is a setup. And because we're building native Android and iOS apps, you need the Android setup or the iOS setup if you have a Mac. And that can take a while. Fortunately, I have it. But if you want to do it, you can follow this guide. That's a link over there. And I have shared the slides, so no worries. Okay, the second thing, you need the Angular CLI. That's what we are going to be used to convert the app. And you need the newest version because that's brand new stuff. And also, then you go to your web project and execute that command, ng-add NativeScript schematics. That will modify your project. It will add some files. It will change some other files. It will add some npm scripts to your package.json. And then you can run your Android app. And that app will be just a really simple app that doesn't have anything to do with your web app. You have to convert your web app later on. Cool. Let's go. So I already did all these things, like I have NativeScript set up, and I'm running my web app and my mobile app. So the default mobile app that you get when you ng-add NativeScript is this one. And the resolution is not really great, but we'll live with that. That's just a single button that doesn't do anything. And now we have to convert our app, right? Cool. That's how it looks like. We have our game component, which is the main component. And our game component is composed of hint component, that's the GIF that we saw, and the guess component, that's the input form that you type your guess, right? The title of the movie. And for the end of the game, we have the credits component. That's just the party icon that we saw there. So how should we start? Okay, the first thing I'm gonna do is take a look at the routing configuration, because something doesn't really seem right here. That's not the game component, obviously. So the app routing module for web contains these routes. By default, we just navigate to the game component. It's pretty simple, right? And now I'm going to open the app routing component for NativeScript that ends in .tns, right? And we have different configuration here. And in our case, we want to reuse the web configuration. So I can just extract that variable and reuse it in my mobile file, right? And there's a cool way to do that in VS Code. And now it's in a different file. So cool. Okay, so I have the routes, which are extracted, and I can just put them in my app routing module for mobile. And I don't need anything of these, right? Cool. And when we save, the emulator here will restart. And what we're going to see is nothing. And why is that? Because, as I said, the game component is not converted yet. We have only the HTML markup. But yeah, we can actually see here. That's the game files. We have only HTML. There's an easy way to convert your components, or at least to do the manual stuff, and that's by using another NgCLI command. It's called NgGenerate Migrate Component, and we need to provide the name of the component. So the name in our case is game. And what happens, we get the markup file, and also we get that component registered in our mobile app, right? And if we go to our game component TNS, we see that there's some random stuff here. And the original web template has some HTML that we're gonna convert. I actually have enough time to do it without code snippets, so let's see what happens. Let's remove all that stuff and let's start migrating. So first, here we have a div that shows the credits part, right? And if we have finished the game, then we are showing that component. I'm gonna make that true by default so that we can work on it, and I'll just get it back later. And instead of div, I'm gonna use an NativeScript layout that is called stack layout. The most important thing about the stack layout, anything you put inside it, it just renders one after the other, like a stack. The elements are stacked. Cool. So I'm just basically replacing the div tag with stack layout tag. And again, I'm not gonna see anything because we haven't converted the credits component. So I'm gonna use that command again, but with a different name, because I want to migrate the credits component. Nice. So now if I go to credits TNS, I see that the original template has one div element which contains some label and some image. How do I convert that to NativeScript? It's actually pretty much the same. So we have an action bar instead of that header, and we have an image. The action bar is the thing that's shown here, and that's the image. It's pretty much the same. And I'm not even wrapping that in a div. Cool. So back on. We no longer want to see that credits until you have finished the game. The NgTemplate tag is the same, obviously. That's just an Angular thing. It's not a browser thing. So I'm going to keep it and move on. What about that title? I'm going to use an action bar again. I'm going to change just that title here instead of putting a label. So, yeah, but of course it's a good idea to wrap all that in stack layouts so that they render properly, but that's later on. So the NS action bar, we need to bind the title property to the title variable, right? And when the app restarts, we're going to see our title up in here, which is almost the same. I'm going to change that title, because what can happen, right? Is that how you spell it? Okay. So, hi. The next thing we need to convert is our hint component. As I already said, that's the div that we saw. And again, we need to run NgMigrate component. This time with name hint. All right, let's go to the hint markup. And here the template is pretty simple. It's just a single image. We already saw how we can convert that actually in the slides earlier. But I have a snippet, so. Okay, another important thing that we should notice is that we're using some classes. So a thing about NativeScript is that it implements the CSS specification. So you can use the CSS you know to style your mobile app. And we also have a preview theme, which is great, and it has some classes that you can use out of the box. So here M15 means that we want to have a margin with size 15. That's why we have this margin here. Okay, now it's just the guest component that's left. It does some stuff that we don't care about because we're only changing the markup, right? We're not changing any behavior. How was it called? It was guess, right? I'm pretty much doing the same thing, but I hope you enjoyed. So we have a form here. And in NativeScript we don't have the form tag, but we have stack layouts, right? So we're gonna use them. Yes, we have stack layout and text field. That's our alternative of the input field. And again, we're binding that property to movie control, just as in the HTML. Cool, it starts looking like our app, right? And yeah, there's actually one more thing that's left. If the movie is guessed, we want to display some nice message to the user and show the next button. Okay, so again, we need some stack layout. There are smarter ways to do that, but the stack layout is the simplest one. And we can use a label. So the label, we can think of it as just a paragraph, right? And we can say, good job. Put another label that we're gonna bind to the current movie title so that the user knows that he gets it right. And we can use some CSS to style that, make it beautiful. For example, text center. And what else? That's enough. We can show that the text is primary, whatever that means. And for the button, no border. For the button, we have a button tag. Come on. Cool. So the button tag says next, and when we tap on the button, not click, but tap, that's important, we want to load the next movie. And that's all. Yeah, of course, we want to display that only if we guessed the movie, right? So I'm just basically gonna copy that ng here. And that button doesn't look pretty nice to me, so I'm gonna style it as well. And 15 for some margin, and bottom primary, so that it looks nice. And let's play again. I'm not sure if, no, the resolution is not very good of that emulator, but you can still see stuff. So the movie was Guardians of the Galaxy. Yay, it works. I'm not gonna play the whole game again. Okay. And another important thing that we should notice, if I open my root mobile module, that's app module TNS, is that I have some stuff here registered. The first thing we notice is that we are registering some components. And if I open the web root module, we're going to see that we're registering the same components. So it may be a good idea to move these files to some common file and just export these components and declare them here from the common file, right? So we don't have repeated stuff. Another thing we notice is that here we are importing the NativeScript forms module. And that's our version of the forms module for web, because the forms module for web is using DOM APIs, and the NativeScript forms module is using Android and iOS APIs. So we should take care of these modules, which are platform specific, and import the right module instead. Okay, pretty much that's it. That's actually the file that was almost fully generated for us. And yeah. Cool. I think I'm done. Is it voting? Cool. Thank you.